All right. We are live. Going live as we're still setting up equipment. You have to love that. It is great to be here. It is great to be here for the second session of this workshop. And I'm excited because, well, I've got a lot I want to share with you today. So everything is rocking and rolling. We're going to give people a moment or two to show up and to be here. Like I said, I do have a lot that I want to share. And so welcome. And it's exciting to have you here for session 2 of this workshop. We have 4 sessions that are planned, and so this is not even quite the halfway point. But as you're coming in, love to know who's here. Let's see here. Dante, welcome. I see you're on LinkedIn. Great. I'm excited that you're here. Harjeet, hello. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here. Love to have you as part of the conversation as well. As you come into the room, I'd love to know who's here, where you're from. Let me know where you're from. Give me a shout out. We had people yesterday from all over the world. It was really exciting. And it was a great time. Suzanne, it's great to have you here, and hi back to California. I'm excited that you're a part of this process with us. Jocks, hey, how's it going? It's good to see you. Awesome. Glad you're here. Sean, welcome back. All right. We're going to start off with one of your questions from yesterday because it was a great question. Connecticut, did you get a bunch of snow up there? Are you digging out? Jackie, oh boy, I'm glad you're back here today. That is excellent. Very good. Oh man, Turks and Caicos, that's almost not fair. Turks and Caicos, that's where I became scuba certified. And you talk about a beautiful place and a beautiful place to dive, the island, the people, just had an amazing, amazing time there. So, boy, I wish I could be weathering the pandemic down there with you. Suzanne, I am excited that you're involved in Pivot also. Really, it's going to be exciting. We're going to talk about Pivot a little bit more today, and people are signing up, and it's going to be a great group, no doubt about it. Oh, Heather, look at you coming in from Honolulu. Very good. Thank you for taking time out of your morning to share with us, and really appreciate that. Oh, my goodness. That's right. Look at there. That is right. You know, I keep thinking about you. I need to come back and dive with you. I'm dying to, and there's no one in the world I'd rather dive with more. So we're going to have to figure out how to make that happen. Awesome. Wow. Small world. Everything comes back around. I'm honored that that you stayed connected like that and that you're here today. Okay. Listen, I want to honor everybody's time. I have a lot that I want to share with you today. A lot that's going on. We're going to talk about how to eliminate time-wasting distractions. We're going to talk about how to gain focus. We're going to talk about how to eliminate fear. We're going to talk about how to eliminate indecision, and put us in a position to move forward at a much more rapid pace based on what we're trying to achieve. And so that's what's going on. Let's do a group dive trip. Now you had me at group dive trip. Awesome. Okay. Sharon, glad you're here. Awesome. All right. And so we just have so much. Now, look, before we get into it, it's important for me to share with you that simply this, that I don't want you to think that what I'm sharing is something that's just that I've mastered. And the reason I say that is because it's a work in process. It takes time. It takes energy. And no one is perfect. We're on this continuum. We're on this journey. And so what we're talking about today, when you start working on it, you'll see an immediate difference in your life, in your relationships, in your business. but it's not a quick fix. It takes time. It takes energy, and so it's something that I continue to work on today in particular. Today is really significant, and so I just want to put that out there right before we get started. Yesterday. Let's see. Before we kick off, yesterday we said we were going to talk about three big questions in this 4-part workshop, and the first big question yesterday was, what do I believe? What do I believe? What do I believe about my source? What do I believe in my life? What do I believe my values are? What do I believe my purpose is, my unique purpose? What do I believe my mission is? All of this is foundational to being able to move forward, because action always follows belief. And when there's a lack of clarity in belief, there's going to be a lack of clarity in action. When we do not have the clarity of what it is that we believe, then what happens is we tend to make one decision one way one day. The similar situation will decide something the other day. We start a project, we don't stick with it. And the reason is because we might not really believe that that's what we should be doing. So it was a very, very informative session yesterday. I really enjoyed sharing that. And Sean, who's with us today, Sean White, Sean, you need to get in Pivot with us this time around. You'd love it, and you'd be an amazing contributor. But the question was, let's see, I'm buying a second copy of your book, The Accountability Circle. Greatly appreciate that. My publisher appreciates that. And giving it to a friend. I love that. That's what it's all about. Abundance, giving, and that enjoyed my live reading of it. Being that their life purpose and strategy towards their purpose is totally different in both ways from mine, would you suggest that we form an accountability circle based on our mutual understanding of the content in your book? Okay, so here's the thing. First of all, I'm not 100% sure what you mean by their life purpose and strategy are totally different, but as far as how they approach it, here's the thing. We talked about purpose and mission yesterday. And so your purpose and your mission do not have to be the same as the purpose and the mission of others that you bring together in an accountability circle. What has to align, what really needs to align, are your values. And so it would be like, Sean, if you and I work together one-on-one, you could have a unique purpose. It's totally different from my unique purpose. That's okay. But our values need to align, because it's our values that people connect through. We connect through those values. And so we need to make sure that that's where the alignment and that's where we're coming from. And when that's in place, all the other stuff, we're just helping each other on that journey. So what you'll find is in your accountability circle, you'll be able to help your friend will help you, because part of that accountability circle is making sure that you are staying true to that unique purpose, and that you're on mission, and that you're living your values. So I hope that helps, Sean, and I hope that gives you the extra clarity that you were looking for. And I just love the fact that you bring forth those great questions. Awesome. So thank you very much, and I do appreciate that. Okay, so let's get to today's learning. We talked yesterday. We talked about the three big questions. And we talked about pivot, and that pivot is not a way of doing. Pivot is a way of thinking. And so it's not about doing something differently. This is all about thinking differently, because as I said before, action follows belief. And if we gain better understanding about what it is that we are thinking, how we're thinking, then what's going to happen is we will drive actions that are going to be more productive, that are going to keep us on track and get us on track, keep us on track. And that's what it's all about. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that. Very good. Okay. So let's see. We've talked about what pivot is. And if you know me, you know my thing's accountability. We're always going to have to touch on accountability a little bit. And the big question is, what is accountability? And as most of you that follow me know, and for those of you that are new, it's simplified. Accountability is keeping your commitments to people. That's what it's about. Keeping your commitments to people. And Next week on Wednesday and Thursday in those live streams on Wednesday, we're going to talk specifically about commitments. And I have something that's going to blow your mind next week when we get on to commitment, because I know that it blew mine when I came across this. So you're not going to want to miss out on that at all. And so 3 big questions. That's where we are. Yesterday's big question is, what do I believe? Today's big question is, what do you focus on? What do you focus on? And this is critical to gain an understanding of this. Some of you know that one of my passions, if you ask my wife, I have too many passions because there's so many things that I love to do, but it's okay. It's okay. She likes me to stay focused. But one of my passions is running and running marathons. And that's something I've done a lot of, and I've been blessed to be in some incredible situations. But I had a running partner. His name was Jay, and we'd get up every morning at 5:30 and we'd go run. And, for the most part, it's dark. And we'd hit the road. And at 5:30 in the morning around here where I live, the road's not very crowded. Matter of fact, at 5:30 in the morning, there would be 2 guys running, and that would be it until a car would crest the hill. And as a car came over the hill, what would happen is we noticed that the car would veer towards us. And when that car veered towards us, you're like, what's going on here? We're the only ones out on this road. Why is that car coming towards us? Is this guy crazy? And we're looking off to the side, and we're thinking we might have to dive into the ditch or whatever, self-preservation. And then eventually the car would straighten out and go by, and you'd go, whew, that, dodged a bullet. So what was going on there? Why would these cars, and I mean every time, they would veer towards us? And what I came to realize was simply this. That car would come over the hill or around the bend or whatever and pick us up in the lights. And as soon as the lights of the car picked us up, the driver would see us. And so the driver's driving down the road, hands on a wheel, looking straight ahead, not texting, looking straight ahead. And then all of a sudden, the lights on the side of the road, well, all of a sudden they see in the lights, oh, there's some runners over there. And what do? Is they're looking in that direction. They're steering in the direction that they're looking at, and which means they're steering towards us. And we're running on the left side facing traffic. They're coming down on the right side. And then they realize they're steering towards us, and then they would correct it and bring it back. So what happens is, where the head goes, the body flows. Where leadership goes in an organization, everyone follows. Where we are focused individually, well, whatever we focus on, that's going to, like a magnet, pull us in that direction. And so focus is critical, because what we focus on, not just staying focused, that's a separate issue, which we're going to talk about, but what we focus on is going to draw us in that direction. And that may be a good thing, but that may be a bad thing. And so really gaining control of what it is that we focus on is critical. So let's do this. Let's go to the board and let's talk about it a little bit, and let's take this just a bit deeper. All right. So we're going to set it up like this, and what we're talking about here is focus. And it's interesting when it comes to focus. So we're talking focus, and when we talk about focus, then what we naturally go to is a situation where we have a choice. We have a choice of what to focus on. So what do we focus on? Do we focus on those things that we can control? Or do we focus on those things that we can't control? Now, see, we have a choice. That's the whole thing. We have a choice. Where does our focus go? On those things that we can control, or those things that we can't control? Because what happens is that's going to determine a lot of things. So what can't we control, for instance? Things that we cannot control. Well, we obviously we can't control the economy. We can't control the weather. What can we control? We can control how we react in a given situation. So to give you that idea. Now, so what happens when we focus on something we can't control? When we focus on something we can't control, then we end up with excuses. It's real simple. We start making excuses. And so what happens is we're focused on what we can't control, and then those turns into excuses because things aren't going the way we want, and then we start justifying it to people. It turns into fear. All of a sudden, we get filled with fear because we're literally focused on things that we can't control. We can't do anything about it. And then the third thing that happens is indecision. So we're not making decisions, which means we're not moving forward. Moving forward is shows up when we make decisions. We make a decision, we move forward. We make a decision, we implement, we move forward. And so when we're focused on those things that we can't control, then we fall into this trap. And these are all negative things, obviously, that happen in our life, that happen in our business, that happen in our relationships. And it just slams us to a halt. And we're not achieving what it is that we want to be achieving. We don't have the satisfaction out of life we want to be receiving. I guarantee you, we touched on this yesterday, we will not be gaining that fulfillment that comes when we are on purpose, because I tell you this, you cannot be on purpose and be focusing on things you can't control at the same time. It's a conflict. It's a conflict. And so we need to not focus on things we can't control, but focus on things that we can control. Okay, so let's take this a little bit further. What can we control? What can we control? Well, we control our attitude. And if you haven't read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, I recommend that book. It's an incredibly powerful book. And in that book, Viktor Frankl basically says the last of men, women, human beings, freedoms is the ability to choose what to think in any given moment. So you can strip everything from us physically, but we still retain what it is that we think in that moment, how our attitude. And this is from someone who spent World War II in a concentration camp under the harshest of conditions that anybody could spend. It's a phenomenal read. So when it comes to control, there's four categories that I want you to think about. Things fall into four categories. There are things that we can control. There are things that we cannot control. There are things that we try to control. And there are things that are out of control. Everything falls into one of those categories. And so this is important because, what is it that we can control? That's where we want to live. If we focus on those things that we can control in any given situation, we're going to make decisions and we're going to move forward. If we focus on those things that we cannot control, we're getting bogged down. Now, what are the things that we try to control? Well, many times we try to control people. We try to manipulate people. And in businesses, you see leaders. Well, they're supposed to be leaders. They try to manipulate people with money. They're trying to manipulate, control people. And then there's things that are out of control. And, sometimes inventory in a business is out of control. Certainly a teenage boy's room is out of control. But the reality is that the things that are out of control, we can work on to get them back in control. And that's what we want to do. Okay. Coming back over here. Let's see here. All right. So what happens? How do we fall prey into this? Well, here's what I've discovered and what I've learned, and this is what I want you to be thinking about. During the day, at any given moment, we run into choice points. We run into these choice points. It's where we have a decision to make, and we get to choose how we react. So you're driving down the street, and somebody cuts you off, and now you have a choice how to react. You can raise your hand and make some gesture that maybe mom wouldn't want you to be making, or you can kind of just let it go, stay cool. How do you react in that situation? That's a choice point. Now, the key is over time to learn to recognize these choice points so that before we get into them, we can be proactive rather than reactive. The reality in that situation is we don't know what that person's going through. We don't know if they're rushing to the hospital because they just got a call that a loved one had a tragic accident, something serious, or we don't know if that's just the way that person drives. And so how we react in that situation, we want to recognize those choice points because we can control our attitude in that situation. And when we control that attitude, we're gaining control over our life, because then what happens is any characteristic that you want to work on, whether it be patience, listening, gratitude, we see these choice points, these moments where we get to choose that attitude. Now, a lot of times we see it after it happened. You go, yeah, I wasn't quite so patient in that moment. And that's okay. We want to learn from that, not beat ourselves up. But what happens is over time, we learn to recognize those choice points as they present themselves. And then we're able to make the kind of decision that we really want to be making, the one that we're striving for to be our best self. All right, let's go look and see if there's any questions. Harjeet, I hear you. Absolutely. Yeah, the rooms are a mess. Been there, done that. I know exactly what you're talking about. Absolutely. All right. So here's my, first of all, do you have any questions on what we've talked about? What we've talked about with regards to focus, control, attitude, because if you have those questions, be sure and put them in the comments and I'll address them. Also, if by chance you're not watching this on the live stream, put your questions in there anyway, because I'm going to check behind and we will answer those questions either in the comments section, or we will answer them on our next live stream, which is going to be next Wednesday at 3:00 Eastern time, right here in the same place, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We're going to be here for session 3. Now, so if you have any questions, put those in. I did have some questions that came in ahead of time. And let's just kind of look at that. If I cannot control people, what happens when I have to work with someone who wants to do things differently than me? And that's a great question. And somebody said something once to me one time that really made a lot of sense. Just because we think it doesn't mean that it's right. Just because we think it doesn't mean that it's right. And so the fact that somebody wants to do something differently, I think we need to be careful not to dismiss that. Our way isn't the only way. Our way isn't necessarily the best way. And believe me, I've learned that the hard way. You need to build rapport with people, and the attitude in that situation, even though you can't control people, it's important as an accountable leader to be communicating with those people, communicating the right information. And we'll talk about that another time, but making sure there's transparency and looking and not just, you want to listen, but not just because you're supposed to listen. You want to listen to what someone else shares as a thought, because maybe they have an insight that we don't have. And so truly listen. That doesn't mean that every decision you make is going to make everyone around you happy, but truly listen and evaluate and respect the people that have shared and acknowledge the fact that they shared before you make your decision. That's how I would look at that situation. Okay, another question is, how can I live my values if I don't have control over all situations? And that's just it. See, here's the situation. We don't have control of all situations. We do not have control of what happens to us, but we have 100% control over how we react in any given situation. And that's where, when we've taken the time, and we talked a lot about values yesterday, when we've taken the time to figure out what our values are, and we have crystal clarity, and that word was a great word in the conversation yesterday. And if you haven't seen yesterday's workshop, then it's recorded. It's on YouTube. It's on Facebook. It's on LinkedIn. Go watch yesterday's. Don't miss that. When you have that clarity, then what happens is you're able to step out those values, and that's going to help take you through those situations, especially when you don't have control in them, because it could be that things are happening to you that aren't positive, but how you react will determine the outcome in the end result. Michael, hey, glad you're here. Innate listening is a great tool. Absolutely. We need to listen. We need to be better communicators. We need to hear people and let them know that and not just, remember, it's not just about going through the steps. It's about really listening and acknowledging people, and then taking our ego out of the situation and saying, you know what, maybe my way isn't the best way. Maybe they have a better way, or maybe there's something between the two. We bring the two together. So great, Michael, appreciate you sharing that as well. And let's see, I think we have one more question here. How do I keep from getting frustrated when other people around me are not performing at the same level as I am? And this is something I hear a lot of time from high performers. So, it depends on what your position is in the relationship, whether they're peers or whether they report to you. And I want to be, everyone works at different rates. And so, sometimes some people work faster, and sometimes others just put in more time to get the work done and achieve at a high level. If you're the leader and you see the different levels on your team, then the key is, our job as leaders is to help people to their potential. And so if someone's underperforming, we need to coach them up. And at the point where they can't be coached up, or they aren't willing to be coached up, I think is really the right way to put it, then it might be that they need to go someplace else. As far as when we're dealing with peers and we're on a work team and, you're busting your chops and the person next to you isn't busting theirs, you can't control that. You can't control that. Don't let their inactivity or their work ethic or their lack of work ethic impact you. And I know that sometimes that's easier said than done, but you have to decide, what are your values? And remember, when we talked about values yesterday, we talked about foundational values, relational values, community values, and professional values. What is excellence? And so you have to define what that is for you and then perform at that level, regardless of what the people around you are performing at in their situation. So that's something that I want you to keep in mind. Okay, let's see. Harjeet, my son comes downstairs with his phone and is listening to your live stream. That made my day. Awesome. Love the fact. Hey, it's a family affair here. We love it. Thank you for sharing, and love to have your son's ear, and it gives you something that you guys can connect and talk about as well. And I would encourage you to ask him questions afterwards and see what he has to say. Okay, so let's go back. Let's just go back. First of all, I've put up the URL, and I'll put it on the screen, mypivotlife.com. And this is the 8-week pivot course that I lead. It's self-paced. It has 6 modules with videos and workbooks that you do at your pace. But there are also live Q&A sessions and deep dive Zoom calls. And we're going to increase the number of Zoom calls this time. And that's where I'm working with you and coaching you through this entire process. And so over the course of 8 weeks, we're going to deal with the 3 big questions, and you're going to leave with crystal clarity. You're going to have a values narrative in writing. You're going to have your unique purpose discovered in writing, your mission in writing. It's going to be a powerful experience. Go to the website, check it out. Now is the time to sign up, because we're going to be shutting that off in approximately, I think, 10 days and starting. So would love to have you in that course. We talked today about the second of the 3 big questions, which is, what do I focus on? And there's 2 aspects to this. There was the aspect of, do I focus on what I can control versus what I can't control? And when we focus on what we can't control, we get fear, excuses, and indecision. When we focus on what we can control, we have the ability to take charge in a situation, make decisions, and move forward. And then we also talked about focus with regards to attitude and to mindfulness. In any given moment, we can make a decision on how we choose to react, and notice that choice point. And we talked about the importance of choice points so that we can choose to act in the way that we feel best aligns with that best person that we are continuously working to be. Everything that we talked about today applies not only to us individually in our own personal life, in our families. It applies to how we interact in the community. It applies to what's going on in your organization and the culture in your organization. If you want to be a more accountable leader, this is what it takes to get control of that. And, sometimes I'll have people tell me, well, I'm not really a leader. And I'll go, okay, are you a parent? Do you have children? Well, a leader has followers. Your children are following you. You're setting the example. Leadership is about taking the responsibility for the success, the safety, the well-being of other people. And I would challenge you, there's probably some place in your life that you really are a leader, and that you have the ability to be a more effective leader. And so what we're talking about yesterday on the video, the live stream, which is out there for you to see, and again today, is going to help position you for that. If you have any more questions, please put them in the comments. I will either answer them off stream or I'll answer them next week. Our next live stream will be next Wednesday. Again, it's at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I love the fact that you've joined from all over, from Turks and Caicos, to the southeast of where I am, to Hawaii, way out west. We've had people on from Africa yesterday. Please keep joining us. I have a lot more that I want to share with you. Love your comments. Everyone, stay well. Have a great afternoon, and I look forward to seeing you on the live streams next week. And thank you for spending your time with me today.